All right, guys. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. For us sitting here in the real world, that is coming up this week. For those of y'all out there in YouTube land, it happened this past week. So when I was asked to do this presentation, I decided, with the holidays being right here, I wanted to do it on Christmas and what Christmas is and what it is now, more or less. And it really brought up a lot of questions when I started doing the research. And by the way, you look into Christmas and its origins, and that's a lot of rabbit holes you can fall into. But the simple truth about Christmas is that it's a holiday celebrated called Christ Mass, and it is celebrated by the Christians in their belief of the birth of their Messiah, Jesus Christ. All Christians know the nativity story. You got Mary, angel comes to her, says, hey, you're going to have a baby, it's going to be God's. She says, wait, hold on, I haven't done the deed, how is this possible? It's immaculate conception. 9 months later, they go to Bethlehem, and she has a baby in a manger. We've sung the songs. So why is it that a Christian belief is celebrated worldwide? Why do so many non-Christians celebrate it? Well, a lot of that comes down to the belief that Christmas is a bunch of other things brought together so that we could entice a bunch of pagans to celebrate Christianity, to become Christians. It's part Yule, a German celebration of the long winter, and some other things that go along with that. It's part Sol Invictus, celebrated on the 25th of December already. It's part Saturnalia. Saturnalia was another Roman holiday in which you got together in December and you partied, and it was revelry, and they flipped the script on who was king and who was a peasant and things like that. A lot of those traditions were carried through. So people assumed, and rightfully so, you would believe that Christmas was invented to appease pagans and to pull them into religion. So like I said, there are a lot of rabbit holes. I got lost for a couple of days researching origins. So I decided, well, I really didn't want to go down the path of origins. I didn't really want to get in over my head. And I realized that a lot of people don't care about the origins of Christmas. A lot of people don't care about the origins of anything anymore. But what about modern Christmas? What is modern Christmas? You ask a lot of people and they're going to tell you it's retail therapy for everybody. It's a season for greedy corporate giants to make a lot of money on the poor people who want to buy gifts for their loved ones. You know, it's a corporate holiday, very much like Valentine's Day and Easter and all these holidays that have a origin or tradition to religion, and yet everyone believes now that they're all corporate. Well, why is that? Modern Christmas, as we know it, and as I see out in the crowd, is elves, Santa Claus, Scooby friggin' Doo. But you don't see crosses, you don't see nativity scenes, you don't see pictures of Jesus, despite the signs that scream Jesus is the reason for the season. All you see, Santa Clauses, elves, candy canes, gingerbread. The Christmas we know today may not even have happened. At one time, Christmas was banned. The Protestants didn't believe that Christmas was a Christian holiday. They believed it to be a pagan holiday. They believed it to be just debauchery. Because up until about the 19th century, which we'll get into on the Victorian era, changing the way we look at Christmas, it was celebrated in the higher echelon. And it was just parties. Poor people had a Christmas tradition, but not like we see today. At one time, it was just parties. It was a time of revelry, getting together, which we still have. That carried over. But it was really just a bunch of games and drinking and eating and fellowship. And during the different Christian reforms that we've had, a lot of the very tight-wadded ones decided that was just too much. So it was actually illegal in some places in England, upper New York area, Dutch New York, I guess that area, they talked about it being banned there. And it wasn't until the mid-1800s that it even became a federal holiday in the United States. It just wasn't even recognized. And that modern era, the Victorian era, which is about 1820s, 30s or so up until 1900, is when you start seeing the Santa Claus. You start seeing the 'Twas the Night Before Christmas story, Christmas Carol. A lot of these new takes on Christmas really came about. And one of the biggest focuses was on the spirit of Christmas, the spirit of giving and love. And everyone knows, I hope everyone knows, at least the story of the Christmas Carol, whether you've seen Mickey's Christmas Carol or you've seen Scrooged, you know the story. Ebenezer Scrooge has his life changed overnight. 3 ghosts appear to him, ghosts of past, present, future, and they teach him about the Christmas spirit. Well, Charles Dickens, when he wrote that story, I don't think he realized how influential he was going to be in all other Christmas stories, because he kind of set the pace. The story is about family, about giving, about change, and knowing that it's never too late. And even though Tiny Tim is a part of the story, he wasn't really the focus so much, but it did lead to children actually becoming a major focus in the modern era of Christmas. Everyone knows, I say everyone knows, if you're watching this, I assume you know what Christmas is, so you would know what the story, 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. You know, all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. Well, when that poem was written, it was written in secret for his children, and then it got published in secret, and it became a sensational hit. But it did a couple of things. It created the image of Santa Claus we know today with his 8 reindeer. Before that, he had 1, and sometimes it was a reindeer, sometimes it was a goat, and sometimes it was a horse. It was a couple of different things depending on where in the world you lived. Well, now all of a sudden he had 8, and they could fly. You hung your stockings next to the chimney with care. That comes from St. Nicholas. The actual St. Nicholas, he was a bishop in 270 AD era in Rome. And the story goes that he'd overheard a man talking about how he was unable to pay the dowry for his wife's wedding. So at that time they gave money to the husband for, here, take my daughter and here's money. He didn't have the money. So St. Nicholas in the middle of the night came up to the house and tossed a bag of gold in through an open window, and it happened to fall in a sock that was hanging next to a fire drying. Now, I don't know if the Romans hung their socks next to fires to dry them. I don't know if they wore socks with sandals, but that's the story. And then you have Father Christmas. Father Christmas is more of a European figure, big jovial guy. He has the wreath, holly wreath thing. He's got the big cane with the little crook and almost kind of looks like a bishop, and he's got robes. Sinterklaas is Northern European, Germanic. He did the naughty nice list. Now, Sinterklaas is where we get the word Santa Claus from. One thing we didn't take with us with Sinterklaas is instead of giving the naughty kids coal, Sinterklaas had an helper that kind of hung out with them on Christmas and doled out punishment to naughty children. We know him now, most people in the modern era, as Krampus. All of these things were brought together in that poem. The naughty nice list, the gifts in the stockings, Santa Claus with his reindeer flying around the world. And so it was taking off in the modern era. And by the way, this was all towards the end of the 1800s. Right at the beginning of the 1900s, Christmas changed for everyone. When Coca-Cola in 1913 was losing money during the winter. They couldn't sell their Coke product during the winter. So they decided that they were going to do an ad campaign with the man in red. Now, I don't remember the guy that originally did the first Coca-Cola picture of Santa Claus, but it wasn't until they commissioned Norman Rockwell in the 20s that he created a bunch of different prints on advertisements for Santa Claus, Coca-Cola, and then he went on to make his own line, which most people actually do know Norman Rockwell's family traditions, photos of the family around the table, cutting the turkey and the Christmas tree in the background, things like that. that set the pace for what we know today as our Christmas. The jolly elf with his, twinkle in his eye, the big coat, red, fur, white, all of it comes as a combination of all of these different ideas that really exploded during the Victorian era for us. Speaking of gift giving, even though this is airing after Christmas, if you got an awkward gift from one of those co-workers you didn't expect a gift from, and now you feel like you might need to get them something, it happens to the best of us. Run over to Amazon, you can pick up a copy of Kevin Schmidt's book, The No BS Path to Enlightenment, or you can maybe buy their kids something, and get really on their good side. Buy their kids a book. Jamie and Lily's Fun Time, Be a Hummingbird Hero. Just saying, they're all on Amazon. Go ahead and snatch up one. Now, we talked about Santa Claus, the reindeer, where that all came from, but what about the Christmas tree, the tinsel, the presents under the tree? Where does that fit in Christianity? Well, prior to the 15 and 1600s, trees outside of homes were actually decorated with apples and oranges to represent the tree of life in the Garden of Eden. And that was done around this time because at one point in our history, we believe that people died and were born and died on the most important days of their life, which would be the same day or something along those lines. But it was also believed that the creation of the universe was on December 25th. Don't know who came up with that one, but it was at one time a belief in society somewhere. And so around this time, they would decorate trees outside their homes with apples and oranges to represent the tree of knowledge, I believe is what it is. But it wasn't until around the 1600s that indoor Christmas trees made their way in. And it started in Germany, now actually a part of France. I don't know when they lost it to France. Don't know how they lost it to France. But they lost it to France. And they started at around 1600s bringing trees indoors and decorating them. Martin Luther, the Protestant reformer, is actually accredited with creating the modern Christmas tree. By that I mean he put candles on the ends of the branches. He was accredited being the first one to do it. And he said he did it because those were the stars of heaven brought into the house. Now, Queen Victoria was married to her cousin. It's just the way they do things in the royal family. Well, her cousin happened to be German. And with Germany being kind of the origin of indoor Christmas trees, they brought that tradition into England. If you know anything about royal society or highfalutin society, anytime someone with wealth and power does something, all the sheep follow. So of course, as soon as Queen Victoria had a Christmas tree in her house, all the earls and dukes and so on and so forth, they all got one. And then it just trickled down, as it does in almost all society. When rich people do something, everyone else has got to try. And so it became extremely popular during her reign. So we have Christmas trees, we have stockings, we have presents. Why do we put presents under the tree now? Well, a lot of people try to say in this modern era, well, those are basic pagan traditions. We bow down to the tree as a form of worship to the tree itself. Well, in doing this research, I found that it was actually documented back during the time of Martin Luther, where they believed the tree to be a representation of the Trinity. Because when you look at a tree from a distance, it's got its 3 points, and it points to heaven. And you are placing your presence, sacrificing your hard-earned money or your hard-earned work to give a gift to someone, and you place it under that tree. Again, these are all rabbit holes I tried not to go down, and I did. But the Christmas tree, Santa Claus, all those things now represent our modern Christmas. But what about the meaning of Christmas, the spirit of Christmas? We've gotten so lost in the material of it, we've forgotten really kind of what it is for Christmas to be a holiday and what it became. At one time, it was a Christian day where you got together and you celebrated the birth of Christ on that day, and that was kind of it. Then it slowly became more into celebrations and different gift-giving ideas. and then it almost got banned, and then it made its revival. And now it's about Santa Claus, Christmas trees, elves, the North Pole. But one very magical thing happened when it became about Santa Claus, when it became about those ideas in the modern world. It brought in non-Christians. You know, I asked the question, why do so many non-Christians celebrate a holiday that is about Christ? Well, because in the modern era, Christmas became about the spirit of Christmas. Those stories all kind of had the same ideas. You give from the heart. People get so excited around this time period and they seem more joyful. And yes, you deal with the crazies at the mall and you deal with the traffic, and people still have their temper tantrums and hit their fuses, but all in all, the spirit of Christmas is of giving. And you're thinking about giving to family. You're thinking about giving to friends. And even the thought of giving, Kevin's talked about it in other discussions, just the thought alone is powerful. It can change your vibration. And when you have so many people thinking about giving, it creates a very powerful, joyful spirit. And that's why this time, for a very long time, felt very joyful. We've lost a lot of it in the last, I'd say, decade, but this time was also a time where we sat around and counted our blessings. We celebrated the past year, because the year is coming to a close, and I get that we have New Year's Eve and we do, the New Year's Eve thing, and we have Thanksgiving right before, and we, thank for what we have. But within the spirit of Christmas, you sit around with family, drinking cocoa or whatever next to a fire, and you revel in what you have, your family, your friends. Sure, we still go to parties. We still do the Christmas parties, the white elephant gifts, which is still a part of that giving from the heart. You're so willing to give up that money that you've saved up over months. Within a week or two, you've spent it all on gifts for other people. And then you sit there on Christmas morning and you get to see the joy in children's eyes. You get to see the smile on your parents' face or your brother and sister's face when they open that gift and they realize not only did you get them something, but it's actually something they wanted, or it's something they know you knew about them or whatever. But the spirit of Christmas really touches home with a lot of non-Christians, and what got a lot of people involved in it is the magic that the modern era created. Santa Claus was magic. His elves are magic. His reindeer friggin' fly around the world in one night. How can you not do that without magic? And it brought in children, the joy that children have when it comes to magic. Staying up late just to listen for Santa Claus. Falling asleep on the couch, hoping to catch a glimpse of them, listening for the reindeer hooves, things of that nature, really are powerful during this season. And so I wanted to talk about the modern Christmas because I want people to remember that even though it is Christmas, you don't have to be Christian, and most people aren't, to celebrate this. Celebrate the spirit of this season. Celebrate the giving, the loving, and the blessings that you get. This winter season is when you come together around a hearth to stay warm. You remember who's in your tribe. Those go all the way back to the beginning, long before Christ was ever born. Winter's always held a very special place in people's hearts because it is the time after the harvest. It is the time when they get to slow down and be together. So just remember the spirit of Christmas in the upcoming year, because again, it's already passed, but spend the rest of this winter counting your blessings and enjoying the things that you've received from your family and friends. If this resonates with you, we're here every Sunday, 1:15. Just come on and see us. Thank you, guys.